Hey, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, then welcome. My name is Maddie, and today I'll be sharing my wrap-up for February. In February, I only read 4 books, which I always say that just reading at least one book is an accomplishment for me, but I would have loved to read more this month. I did get stuck on a certain book, which of course I'll talk about later, that took me 2 weeks to get through, so that was the problem there. That's why I could not read more than I wanted to, because I was stuck on this one book that was so painful to get through. So that's why I only read 4 books this month. But anyway, let's just get into the books that I read in February. The first one is Dark Harmony by ℒ𝑟𝑒, which is the 3rd book in the 𝑏𝑎𝑟gainers series. I can't remember if I started this book in January and then continued it on in February. I can't remember. It feels like forever ago when I read this book. Every time during these wrap-ups, for the first book I read in the month, I always feel like it's been months since I read it because it feels like so long ago since the month started. So I'm like kind of forgetting things about this book. That happens every time with the first books I read in the month. But yes, this is the finale to the ℒ𝑟gainers series, which if you don't know, it's a paranormal romance that has to do with fae. My experience with this book was really mixed because in the beginning of the book, I felt like it was going really good. It was actually gearing up for me to be the best book in the entire series because I thought it was going at a good pace. I really liked where the romance was going specifically, so it was starting off really good, and then as I kept reading it, it just went downhill and ended up being the worst book in this series for me. So the latter half of the book did not live up to the first half, sadly. And this goes throughout the whole series, but I feel like the strongest point of the series is the romance itself. I feel like the romance was so well developed. I really love the connection that Des and Callie have. I feel like they're so supportive of each other, and I feel like the relationship overall is pretty healthy, so I've really loved reading about their romance. They also, the way they talk about each other is just so loving, and Des is so romantic. I just love them together. But unfortunately, I feel like throughout this whole series, the plot has been all over the place, and I have said in previous wrap-ups where I have talked about these books that I feel like the romance really overshadows the plot of the series, and the two are equally balanced. Like I said, I love the romance, but I wish there was also more of a focus on the plot as well and not just the romance. But from what little we get of the plot, it just feels really all over the place. I really did not like the villain of this series. He felt so one-dimensional. He's like a very stereotypical villain, which made him not interesting enough, and the whole climax of this book felt so easy. The way they took down the villain was so easy. Like, it felt like they took no effort into tearing down the villain, and even though they took very little effort, the villain went down anyway. It just was really, really weird. So unfortunately, this is the worst book in this series for me. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, so it wasn't terrible. All the stars go to the romance because I think the romance is so, so good, but the plot just does not do it for me. So overall, for this whole series, I'd give it like a 4 out of 5 stars. I do think it's still worth checking out. If you are into paranormal romance or if you like fae books, this is a good one. However, this series does have a trigger warning for rape, so just keep that in mind. Now going into my second book I read this month, the book that really slowed down my reading this month. This is the one. And that is 50 Shades Darker, the 2nd book in the 50 Shades trilogy. I believe that's what it's called. First book being 50 Shades of Grey. So last month I did read 50 Shades of Grey, as I mentioned, and I also mentioned that I didn't think it was as bad as people make it out to be. It definitely is not for everyone. I know that. It takes a very specific viewership to be able to enjoy the series, and I'm kind of in that viewership, kind of not. I'm kind of in the middle ground. But I did like the first book. I liked where the plot was going. I was very interested in Christian as a character, who is a love interest, if you didn't know, and the reason why he is the way he is. And I don't feel the huge need to give a synopsis of this series because I'm pretty sure mostly everyone knows what it's about, or at least knows like the key part of what it's about. In short, it's about this girl named Anastasia, and she comes in contact with this guy named Christian, and he's like this huge billionaire. So she becomes interested in him, and eventually she finds out that he is a dominant person, both like emotionally and like sexually. So she's swept up in that and is trying to get used to the way he is because she is in love with him. That's basically what this whole series is about. I did like some parts of the first book. Like I mentioned, I really enjoyed Christian's character and unraveling everything that is about him. But I did mention that I think the writing in the first book is really bad. And it just gets worse in the second book. The writing just does not improve, and that's what made it so excruciating to get through this book. Because of the writing and also the fact that the pacing is terrible. It is so bad. I feel like this is one of the worst paced books I have ever read. I would say it's the worst, but After by Anna Todd also exists, and that book had horrible pacing as well, so this one does fall into the category of terrible pacing. I did annotate this book, as you can see. It's so funny because I was annotating it a lot in the beginning, but towards the end, I just stopped because nothing was happening. Actually, my notes throughout a lot of this was just me writing down, nothing is happening. That's all I was saying. Like, I didn't even annotate the first book because I didn't expect to enjoy the first book a lot, so I didn't feel the need to, but I enjoyed it enough to where I was like, okay, I'll annotate the second book. But like, I had pretty much nothing to say. I still tapped some of it, but for the most part, nothing was happening. Nothing. Like, there was this one scene that happened where it was just Anna and Christian buying a car for Anna, and I'm like, why is this scene important? The scene played no part into the rest of the book. I didn't understand why we needed to spend pages just watching them buy a car. It was so weird. And there is kind of a thriller aspect of this book where one of Christian's ex-submissives comes back into his life and is like really jealous of Anna, so she's like trying to kill her. And it was just really, really weird. It felt like this book was trying to be a thriller but was not executing it really well, because that whole subplot was wrapped up really quickly, and I just felt like it was not really needed. This book was also really odd and just felt really out of place throughout the whole series, because the first book has a lot to do with like BDSM, like that's one of the main premises of the first book, but in the second book everything is so vanilla, and I was not expecting that. It's because Christian wants to try getting into more vanilla because that's more what Anastasia prefers, so he tries for her, and unfortunately that just made it to where all the sex scenes felt so repetitive, which, like I said, I love vanilla sex scenes. I love them so much, so that doesn't bother me at all. But since there's so many sex scenes in this book, to make them all vanilla, it just made them so boring. Like, I found myself skimming through them because it was just the same scenario happening every single time. So yeah, this was a miss. It took me 2 weeks to get through this book because I couldn't go more than 30 pages without feeling exhausted from reading this. Like, I would read 30 pages and it felt like I had read 200 because it was going so slowly. However, I did watch the movie because with 50 Shades of Grey, I felt like the movie was way better than the book because the pacing was better. So I had a feeling that the movie for the second book was going to be a lot better because the pacing would be better. And yes, the pacing is so much better in the movie. And I also appreciated the movie because it took out a lot of the problematic aspects I had in this book. Like, there's this one scene where Anna meets Christian's therapist, and his therapist tells her that the reason Christian is improving is because of her, because she changed him, and that made me so angry because that's just not how it works. With someone who's been through years of trauma, one person isn't going to change them within 5 weeks. I feel like that's so unrealistic, and it's even more unrealistic for a therapist to say that. I thought that was very unprofessional of a therapist to say that this girl is the reason that Christian is a changed man. Like, no therapist would say that, and unfortunately the movie did take out that whole aspect with the therapist completely, which I really appreciated that, and I wonder if they took it out, not just because of time restraints, but also because it was highly problematic. So I really love that the movie did that. And the movie also took out that very out of place car buying scene. So the movie was way better paced than the book. And I actually went ahead and just watched 50 Shades Freed, the third book in the series. I just watched the movie. I'm not reading the book. I cannot go through this writing anymore. Even though I bought the book, I don't even care anymore because I cannot handle reading the books anymore. So I just watched the movie to the last book. And the movie to 50 Shades Freed was also really good. Like, the movies are great. I feel like they're way less problematic than the books are. The books, the writing, just not great. So I will say, if you are interested in 50 Shades of Grey, don't read the books, just watch the movies because the writing in the books they're bad. They're so bad. I felt like I wanted to die every time Anastasia mentioned her subconscious. I would get so angry. The amount of times she mentions what her subconscious is saying is ridiculous. It's so annoying. So I gave 50 Shades Darker 2 stars. Next, I got to my random TBR pick for the month, and that was Wait For You by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This one is the first book in a new adult series, and it's about this girl named Avery. She is just going into college. She's moved out of town and gone to a college out of town because she wants to get away from drama that happened in her hometown, and so she thought the best way to do that is just to go to a college out of town. So she meets this guy named Cam, and they start a school project together. Throughout it, they get to know each other more, and Avery does start to feel something for him, but she's very reluctant to really go all into a relationship because she's having a lot of internal trouble with what happened in her past. That's basically what this whole book is about. It was really good. I always enjoy Jennifer L. Armentrout's books. I don't think I've ever rated any of her books below a 3-star at least. They're, for the most part, really good. So I had high expectations going into this book, and those expectations were met. The huge theme about this book is trust, and trust in a relationship, and how you have to trust your partner to be able to handle all of your baggage, because Avery has a lot going on. She experienced something in her hometown that was so traumatic. It's so unimaginable. I would hate for this to ever happen to anyone. I do have to mention what happened a little because it comes along with a trigger warning, but she was sexually assaulted as a young girl, so do keep that in mind before going into this book. If that's something that you can't handle, then keep that in mind for sure, because rape is a huge subject in this book. But she experienced that in her past, and her hometown did not take that well. She was extremely victim blamed for what she went through, and she was bullied by her classmates because of that, which is terrible. And so she has a lot of problems opening up to other people because the people in her past just like shot her down for something that was so horrible for her to go through. She feels like if she shares what she goes through with anyone, then they're also going to blame her for what happened. And so that's why she has a lot of trouble opening up to Cam about it. And therefore, Cam has a lot of trouble pursuing a relationship with her because she is so closed off. But I really enjoyed seeing them go through this and overcome it as Avery is able to open up to Cam more about what happened to her. It was very touching. And Cam is so loving, so romantic, and just so supportive of what she went through. It was really nice to see Avery have someone who didn't shut her down for what she went through, didn't put her down because of it, and really understood how she was feeling about the situation and believed her when she said that this happened to her. I feel like it's really important for victims of this situation to be believed because it's very rare. It does happen, but it is rare that someone lies about this situation. So it's very important to believe victims of this situation, and I was really glad that Cam gave that to her. It was very sweet, and also their entire relationship was so sweet. They have a lot of banter together, a lot of playfulness about them. I really love their dialogue and their interactions. It was just so cute. So I am really excited to continue on with this series. I do believe this is a companion series, so each book follows a different couple and character. The next book in the series, though, follows the same events that happened in the first book, but through Cam's point of view, which I am very interested in reading about because there are a lot of things that happen with Cam and the way he functions and his past that I would like to know more about, and I'm sure the companion book to this first book will go into that. So I'm excited to read that as well, and excited to read the rest of the books in this series. I'm pretty sure they're going to be great. And I gave Wait For You 5 out of 5 stars. And as for trigger warnings, like I mentioned, this one does have a trigger warning for rape, but it also has one for self-harm, so also keep that in mind. I'm house sitting, that's why I'm in a completely new background, and I'm here because I'm babysitting some dogs, and we have a visitor right here. So you might hear her a little bit in the background, but she wants to be petted right now, so I'm just gonna pat your head while I talk, okay? So the last book I read this month was not on my original TBR for this month because it was sent to me by one of my Instagram followers, which was so cool. So thank you so much for sending me this book. Also, I really enjoyed this one, so it was a huge success. So that was really cool. And that is Beneath by October Del Pozo. So this one is a YA kind of mystery, sci-fi-ish sort of book. It's the first in a series. I'm just gonna read you the back synopsis because I just tried to like verbally explain the synopsis and I feel like I did a terrible job. So I'll just read the back of the book right here and let you know what it's about. So it says, 𝑣𝑖𝑑𝑒𝑜𝑠 Island, an island cursed with endless rain by an ominous sailor in 1947. An island where secrets run so deep that it seems impossible for them to ever be fully unburied. An island where time itself can't be trusted. Duncan Riddle has just moved to 𝑣𝑖𝑑𝑒𝑜𝑠 Island. He quickly learns that this small island town harbors a secret, and some of the residents are desperate to keep him from uncovering them. Meanwhile, Rowan Hasten deals with the loss of her family after a mysterious fire burns down their home. Now she must learn the secrets of 𝑣𝑖𝑑𝑒𝑜𝑠 Island while trying to decide if the island is even truly cursed or not. So that's the basic synopsis of this book. It is a mystery where these characters are just trying to uncover the curse of this island. I was really impressed by the writing of this book. It was really well done. It was really well paced, and especially after reading 50 Shades Darker, I was like, I just need a really well paced book. This one was so well paced. There was constantly things happening. The mystery was always being dragged forward where you're constantly wondering what exactly is happening here. There was always questions being asked regarding the mystery, so it really kept me on the edge of my seat. And I really love the characters. This book actually has a pretty huge cast of characters. The main ones we follow are Duncan and Rowan, but there's also other characters around them that do contribute to the story. They're not just there for the sake of being there. They all serve a purpose, which I really, really, really appreciated. They were really well done background characters. And this book is also so atmospheric. I love the setting of this island where it just rains all the time and there's never any sunlight. I felt like the book did a really good job at putting you in that atmosphere and making it very believable. This is the first book in a series, and because of that, there are a lot of elements to the mystery that aren't solved yet, which is fine because it is the first book in a series, so I'm sure the rest of the books are going to explain more of what's going on, but because of that I was confused sometimes, but I think that was intentional. But overall, really well done book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, so I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend to check it out. I'll link down below where you can get this book, and I'll also link October's Instagram page for this book. She has made an Instagram account for this book just about this series itself, which is so cool. So it gives you a lot more details about the book and what it's about. I would highly recommend to check that out also if you are interested in this one. And I also will mention that this book does have a trigger warning for suicide, so just be aware of that before going into this one. And that was my wrap up for the month of February. I only had 4 books to mention, and somehow I still ended up recording for a half hour. I don't know how that happened. I ramble a lot, as we know. Hopefully March will be a better reading month for me. We'll see. I feel like I'll get into these moods where I want to read, like in these big moods where I want to read it, and then I'll also be in a mood the next day where I just don't want to read at all. So I've been really in and out of a reading mood this past month, so we'll only just have to see how March goes in regards to my reading mood, but hopefully it'll be good. And one more thing before I go, I do want to mention that I have just disregarded my uploading schedule. I find that it's just too hard for me to stick to uploading on certain days when my work schedule is inconsistent. So unfortunately, I'm just going to stop with doing an uploading schedule, but I am at least going to try to post once a week. That is my goal. 2 times a week if I can. I just won't have an uploading schedule where I'll be setting certain days to upload. It'll just kind of be random. So I'm trying my best. It's been really hard to film lately when I'm living in a trailer with 2 other people and it's not silent all the time because I need quiet while I'm filming. So that's also been really, really hard, but I'm trying. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more anime-related videos and book-related videos. And if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, that link will be in the description box. And I'll be back really soon. Bye.